Good afternoon, my fellow Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave and Jack, giving you a mid-evening stream, about an hour and 15 until the Chelsea and Arsenal game tonight. We're going to make sure we're all off in time to hopefully watch Chelsea lose and take a bit of their momentum heading into the North London derby. That would be ideal. But we also thought today we'd bring some new faces to the channel, not new around the community, of course. You know, Dan, Charlie, seen them on shows around the place and stuff like that. So they're not new to community. But we said we'd bring them on today and have a discussion about a few things, about the pressure that seems to be mounting on Ange heading into the North London derby, our problem in defence, and a few other things that Jack has cooked up. So hopefully you enjoy it and hopefully you stay with us for the duration. Jack, how are you, my man?
Doing okay, Dave. Like you said, cooked up the questions today, everybody. So if you want someone to be angry with, it's me. You don't have to be angry with Dave on the questions that are being asked. Some of them are tough ones, right? We're going to be talking about kind of the pressure, at least some of the skepticism around Ange. You know, we're going to be talking about your favorite player, Dave, James Maddison, at some stage, see whether he's satisfying you with his play. And then also we have some questions on kind of the news of this week, that's popped up. I believe there's Spurs are getting in trouble for the friendly that's after the end of the season. Destiny Udogie, of course, out, and Ben Davies is being favored, which is, again, one of Dave's favorite players that we can chat about going into this North London derby weekend. But yeah, feeling okay, Dave. And like I said, everybody, feel free to be angry with me if you get triggered by one of the questions.
I just can't still believe we're still asking questions about Davies 3-4 years into the journey. But hey, here we are. But look, we'll welcome in the other guests below us. Of course, we've got Danny from the Hotspur Hood. Had the pleasure of sharing an evening with him last week over on Spurs King TV. I thought it was a very, very good conversation. Dan, how are you keeping, my man?
Same Spurs, different day. But apart from that, all's cool, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all, lad. Just excited for the North London derby. Of course, your boy will be there, so I'm absolutely pumped for that. And then we welcome in Charlie, Spurs N17. How are you keeping, Charlie? Of course, we became aware of you when you first came on the fan show. How are you keeping, my man?
I'm doing amazing, really. I'm really looking forward to my first panel show in here, for my first talk show. So I'm really doing good,
No, and look, boy, everyone in the chat, please give these boys a massive big up. Got in contact with them last minute, and because we only put it together last minute, got in contact with last minute, and they both agreed to come on and give up their evening. So make sure you give them a bit of love in the comments for that. We'll welcome a few quick people in, and then we will crack on. Who have we got with us this evening? We have Gabrielle One. Come on, you Spurs. London Derby week. Absolutely. I cannot wait, my man. We have Mark Cook. Big up, Super Jack. Good to see you, Marky. We've got Chris from Newcastle. How are you keeping, Chris? Hopefully you ventured out and about down there now.
Big up, Chris.
Since that humbling we took up there. We also got Dan Coy's evening. Dave and Jack. Is it 2 p.m. on Sunday yet? Come on, you Harris Army. Dan, are you going? If you are, I'd like to meet you, my man. Big yourself up. Got Mark P. Evening, everyone. Hope Dave brings the look of the Irish Sunday. Yeah, look, I got a lot of that over the last few days. A lot of pressure on me to deliver. But look, we've got Michael Oliver, I believe, in charge. I mean, referee is the Premier League have rolled out their best anti-Tottenham referee for the game. So, you might see me chase him around the pitch if he does a bad job. Or Nick can restrain me. Big up, Nick. Can't wait to see you in London, my man. Absolute legend. Cannot wait. We also got Terry Wright. Big up, gents. Good to see you, my man. Got Scotty Heinen. Big up to all. Come on, you Spurs. We've got Michael. Big up, Danny and the lads. Good to see you in the build. We also have Isha, FIFA, and RL. Good to see you. King Hoddle, great to see you as always, my man. We've got Derek Hutchinson, big up, Dave. Charlie, Dan, let's show these gooners what for and who they are. Come on, you Spurs, big up, Derek Hutchinson. Great to see you, my man. Who else have we got? We've got Paul Connor says, good evening. All still at work, but listening. Big up the panel. Really appreciate that, Paul. Good to see you tuning in. We also have Alpesh Patel. Good evening, everyone. Think we are toast because Ange's team has no backbone or any sort of consistency. Well, look, we will be having a discussion about that. And, all opinions welcome. Get them in. This is what this is all about. Gons Football and Team says, big up. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. Along with Thomas. What a great role model. Oh, look. Sorry, I should have read that before I bring up. Look. Each to their own, my man. Who else have we got here? Ray Chester. Come on, you Spurs. Big yourself up. We've got Big Pants. Anything to shut up Merson's mouth. Yeah, exactly. I no doubt he's a lot to say this week. We also got Tottenham LSG and Ange is flawed. We are getting bashed badly by Arsenal. Look, I hope not. We also have Beyond 72, also a yellow card for the first tackle on Saka. Then it's coming. And we also have Leighton Evelyn. Anyone who thinks we beat Arsenal are delusional. Leighton Evelyn, we all know you do love a bit of a happy clap, my man. We but big up that. Good. Hopefully I'll see you there, my man. Reach out to me on one of the socials or something like that, and I'll arrange to go and meet you for a couple of minutes, my man. It'd be an honor. But Jack, over to you, my man. Let's get this cooking.
Let's get this cooking. If you can for us, though, please, everybody, do smash the like button. Do get your comments in. And if you do want to stop us at any stage, feel free to throw in a super chat if you want to get your opinion in. But Dan, it's North London Derby week, and it feels like Ange is under a lot of pressure. Does he need to win this game in particular, in order to maybe buy back some of that lost faith or trust with the fans? Where do you stand on Ange right now? Do you think the pressure is justified?
You see what I mean? I think it's a weird one with Ange at the minute because I don't really think it matters whether we win, lose, draw, or whatever of any games coming up, really. Because I think from who I've spoke to, what I've seen, what I think myself is this season's done and dusted as far as I'm concerned. I'm more interested about what he could or what he might do next season. But it is the London Derby, it's the Arsenal game. The pressure is going to be on him no matter what, same as it would be any manager there. And with the situation he's now in, with Doji, Porro probably missing, I think we're really going to have to see what Ange is about now, on whether he's stubborn, naive, ignorant, or he's playing a game himself. We're going to have to see him do something or try and change something, I would have thought, to try and make this game have a chance of working. This is where I think is the first game we really see what has he actually got in him. What type of person is he? What type of manager is he? This is the game that I think is going to be a big question, because he's going to have to adjust something, surely.
So some of the people you've been speaking with, some of the Spurs fans you've been speaking with, feel like there's not really much left to play for this season, kind of like we're at the beach sort of period?
Oh, to an extent, yeah, because like I said, Champions League really doesn't bother me in the slightest. Of course, I'd love to be in Champions League, same as anyone, but the way we are at the moment, way we're playing, squad we go in that Champions League and play this way, we're going to get embarrassed. So if we get into anything, I'll be more than happy with the Europa. If we don't even get in that, truthfully, I can't even say I care at the moment. I personally have already got my eyes on next season. He's had his training, he's had his check about with the team, and we now need to see what Ange is about. And I think this is the first game which can really show what he is actually about.
Yeah. What do you think, Charlie? Do you feel like you agree with Dan that Ange is, the questions really are whether he's going to go into this one stubborn, naive, like he brought up? Where do you stand on this game? Does he have to win this game in order to buy back some trust and lost faith from the fans?
I think it's a hard one, especially because it is a North London derby, but it still is a game. I know it's North London, but it is a game. And for us to be in this position right now and not to have trust in Ange is a bit weird. I do get what Dan says. I've said it on this podcast as well. So I think he is right on that kind of stuff, because if he goes into this really stubborn and plays Ben Davies at the back like he plays Udogie, we will get flanked so hard, and we can't believe that we'll just get pushed so hard on the left side. Well, it was not going to be good for us if we do that. So he has to. I think he has to do a bit of. He has to be less stubborn this game, and then we'll see. If he's just less stubborn, I think I'll have more trust in him, because we don't have the players at this game for what he usually does. That's how I feel it.
And for you, Dave, though, like, where do you stand on it? Is the pressure justified on Ange right now? Is this kind of a must-win for him, or, it's North London derby? It's hard to put that sort of pressure on him. I think you muted yourself.
It's every time. Sorry, my microphone's been playing up all day. Look, I do understand the pressure around Postecoglou and stuff, off the back of the smacking against Newcastle. But for fans like me, I'm committed to the Ange project. I'm looking beyond this season. I'm looking at the bigger picture. Don't get me wrong. I do not want to lose to Arsenal. I'll be very unhappy if we do lose to Arsenal. Being brutally honest, I don't think Ange Postecoglou is going to change anything for this North London derby. The only thing that's going to change is the personnel, but the tactics and everything else will remain the same. Now, look, it could come out to bite him, because if we don't get the desired result that we want, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny, a lot more questions being asked of them, and a lot more people that haven't already come out and maybe expressed, their concerns about Ange probably will. You'll probably get more and more that'll come out the woodwork. So, I do think it could come back to hinder him, but at the end of the day, I don't think there should be too much pressure heading on to Ange. His job for me, hinder on this North London derby. We've committed to the project. We've given him a couple of years. And for me, I think he's justified to stick with what he wants. When Pochettino first came into this club, you know, he sort of stuck to his way. He had a young squad. The only really sort of difference, and he finished fifth in his first season, but the only sort of real difference was that he did bring us to a cup final. That's where maybe Ange hasn't maybe done himself any favours. But when you look at the game against Fulham in the Carabao Cup earlier on in the season, a lot of them players are gone or they're on the way out the door this summer. There was a lot of them players that started. So, you know, he used that as an opportunity to see who is up for the game at Tottenham Hotspur, who isn't, you know, and he sort of sussed out his squad from there. The FA Cup, look, we went out to Man City. We went out last minute, realistically, to them with a late sort of goal. So, look, you can lose to Man City anytime. We got to a Carabao Cup final under Jose Mourinho, and then they bet us in the final. So, you know, that can happen with Man City. But I do think there's a lot of overreaction to Ange Postecoglou this season. I get it. As Tottenham fans, we don't like losing. But, you know, at some point, we have to show a manager a bit of patience and stop putting all this pressure and all this scrutiny on them. I get that they're a manager at a club that's deemed Champions League and it's going to come. But I just think where we've been over the last few years, it would be wise for us to give this guy a bit of time and a lot more, a lot more investment in the summer from the board's point of view.
Just to push back slightly though, Dave, like I have heard, stats, kind of banded about, which I do feel like maybe justifies some of the pressure that has been put on Ange, where you hear like a stat, like I think something like Iraola has more points, in after his first, terrible spell, like his first terrible games with Bournemouth. I think after that ended, he's actually picked up more points than Man United, than Tottenham, than, some of these top 4, top 5, top 6 teams. So the fact that Bournemouth in like the last 25 games or something have actually picked up more points than us, isn't that like maybe where some people are coming from with some of the pressure and some of the, question marks?
So we're going to use a club that's sitting in 13th in the Premier League as a reference. I think it's just
to show, like how many points, we have dropped, in this period.
I get it, but there's contributing factors to that, with the suspensions you can't legislate for, injuries you can't legislate for, stuff like that, So there's things that are beyond Ange Postecoglou's control. And when he's had to rely on squad play, rely on before, where did it get them? It cost them their job. And we can't keep going through this cycle. At some point, we have to say, no, we're doubling down with this guy. You back him. You give him a squad that's fully his. There's contributing factors that doesn't really seem to get mentioned or doesn't really buy Ange any time that really should, in my opinion.
What do you think, Charlie? Do you agree with Dave that people are ignoring some of the, things that have happened over the course of the season, not maybe giving Ange too much of an excuse?
I think they are, but I do get where it comes from, the pressure, because these next 6 games are so important, detrimental for the rest of the season. Because let's say we lose the next 3, we're not going to get Europe. So I do get why there's a bit of pressure, because the Spurs fans want to get into Europe, and in the rest of the season is really good. He had a bad patch, an amazing patch, but we still do need to win a couple of these next games. Otherwise, we're not going to get into Europe, and this whole season will go to waste. That's how I feel.
I think the pressure is not really that justified, but I could see how the pressure could be building, because these next 3 games for me, Dan, are tough. Like, you got the North London derby. No matter how we look at it, no matter how rational we go into that game, if we do end up losing, people will lose their heads naturally, right? It's an emotional game. It's a passionate one. People will probably then throw, some questions and point some fingers towards the manager in case it goes wrong. Then we have tough games after that with Chelsea as well, and with Liverpool. You just think that it's not going to get much easier for Ange in these next weeks or so. And, one of these games, if they do go really poorly, you could see that the pressure would just kind of continue to mount. There would be more people maybe willing to start pointing fingers.
What I mean with pressure is the pressure for Europe, because if we lose, let's say we lose 4 games, the pressure on him and the pressure on Europe will get too high for us. Because I don't think we'll win against Burnley, we'll win against Sheffield, but the rest of the matches, it's a 50-50. There's no 100% win in that except for those 2 matches. So in that aspect, I say there's pressure on him. He has to win, I think, a minimum of 1 or 2 and draw a minimum of 1 or 2. Otherwise, we're not going to get into Europe. And that's why I say pressure, because let's say we get 8th this season. We've done exactly the same as last season. So what has this season brought to us? You know what I mean?
Definitely. Before we move on from kind of the pressure on Ange, Dan, do you kind of feel like, after this next game, probably a lot of pressure will be put on Ange in case it doesn't go well for us? I think it's not going to get any easier for him. That's how I see it.
Well, of course, it's not going to get easier for him, and I wouldn't want it to get any easier for him. I want to see a manager that can handle the pressure. Everything at the start of the season, with the games he had with Man City, with Arsenal and all that, Man U, whatever, at the start of the season, that was nothing. That was a minor. Why? Because no one expected anything. Could have lost those games and people probably really wouldn't have even complained because nobody knew what to expect. They didn't know some of the quality we was getting in or some of the quantity, whatever way you want to look at it.
True.
It was happy-go-lucky for him then. Now people know what Ange is supposedly about. We now know what that team is about. He's got a significantly better team than the past two managers have had. I expect him to be fighting for a 5th or 6th place if he is this quality manager. The biggest problem is I think he's made his own life hard, very hard.
Yeah,
he might as well have
I
shot
agree.
himself in the foot by standing there saying, we are going to go for the title next season. We are going to try for it. That was a stupid thing to say because then that makes fans start looking too far ahead. I mean, anyone who's looking at Spurs winning the title, they're a bit further down the tunnel than I am to see light on the end of it. I'll give them that. But he's made his own life harder. I think the thing that people are starting to pick up on, one thing I'm definitely picking up on, is he does not change at all. Nothing. This is his way. We stick to my way. All right, I get that. But to me, that's where the question comes in. Is that stubborn or is that naive? This is not Scotland. This is not the Scottish Premiership. And there's no insult to them, but the Scottish League is absolutely nothing compared to the Premier League. It's got 2 teams in it, basically. Most people couldn't even name the 12 in the league. The Premiership is a whole different kettle of fish. It's the best league in the world for a reason, and we know that. And I'll give an example. 2 examples. When you go 3-0 down, well, it's not going your way, and then you wait until you're 3-0 down before you make any subs. I didn't like that. Other one is, we get done by the same goals, game in, game out. And it was still pointed out one fact to me. It's not the amount of chances we give away. We're actually one of the better ones at it. It's the quality of the chances we give away. We might as well open the goal and say, put it in the net for you. And when you're getting done the same way all the time, naked down the flanks or straight over the middle because we're so far pressed up, surely he's got to be thinking, surely. And then Newcastle done it to us how many times before they scored the goal? I think about 3 times they cleared it straight over us on the wings. Then they get the goal. Right, they're coming for the kill now. Right, this ain't working properly. Right, boys, come back 10 yards. Sit back 10 yards, soak up a bit of pressure. Then we go for it again. Nope. My man sits there and says, go for it. Next thing you know, 2 minutes, we're 2-0 down. It's blatantly obvious something needed to change at half time. Nothing changed. We went 3-0 down because of the same sort of goals. And then he makes a decision. He's got to adapt. This is the Premiership. It is not Scotland. He has to understand that there's certain teams here that you just cannot play that style against through and through. He has to adapt certain points. If you're playing Liverpool, you've got to watch Salah on the left. Your man needs to be coming back, marking that little bit more, covering there. Yeah, if we got a decent DM and everything else, I know all that, but we haven't. So he needs to work with what he's got. And if you go and tell your left wing back, inverted, whatever, to be up the other end of the pitch when you got Salah coming down the side of you, it's only going to take one good ball to him and he's going to go through and score. Same problem that we'll have with Saka, not so much with the scoring on either of the flanks, because we get caught open every time. He's got to adapt to certain games, certain players, certain people. There is a little tweak in each game you need to make, I would have thought.
Look, just on 2 things there. On that last point, that you made there, that people say he need to adapt. Well, what do we want at Tottenham Hotspur? That's the mentality that managers at teams lower in the league have. They have to adapt to what's there. When you're at a big club and you look at the clubs that are ahead of us, the managers came in and instilled their philosophy, and it was up to the board to back that. And that's where we need to be with it. If he adjusts to the likes of Ben Davies and stuff, all it does is allow these guys to stay around here another year. All it does is convolute the sort of direction that we want to go on. All it does is make the board think that they have to spend less money. All it does is sort of dilute your transfer plans because you don't know whether to stick or twist. So for me, I think he's well within his right to stick to what he's doing. Also, we talk about we want to see a manager that can handle the pressure. I'd argue sticking to what he's doing despite all the noise around him. is dealing with the pressure. He hasn't blown up in any press conferences like Conte has, like Jose has, and stuff like that. So I'd argue that he is actually handling the pressure pretty well. And I think many people are missing the sort of wood between the trees with this. You look at Pochettino when he first came in. He didn't really adapt. It was only in the second season, once he had another transfer window under his belt, where he adapted certain things to his system. Jurgen Klopp adjusted it over time when he had more players for his system. Same with Guardiola and everything else. Why are we holding Ange to that level when we know we don't have a squad to that level and that he does need more players and stuff like that? For me, I think he's done a brilliant job. And everyone says change, sit back a little bit, this, that, and the other. And I'm going to say the majority of Spurs fans and the consensus from the Spurs fan base last season and in years gone by, they don't like that approach. Many of them were screaming they wanted this approach last season, and they forget that.
They were. Yeah, they were. I agree with that. But you can't play that way 24/7. You can't do it. Players have not got the capability of doing that. Even the top teams, when it comes to certain parts of a game, they lay off for 5 minutes, even if it's to get the energy. Or if it's being pumped at you that hard from all angles and that, all right, come back a little bit, soak it up a little bit, then go for it. I'm not saying I want my man to change his system. That's a whole different story. I'm saying I want my man to adapt to certain types of the game. Now, all four of us could sit here and say, right, we've got a good idea what Arsenal are going to play, how they're going to play, whatever, and that. So, right, we play our way and that's that. But when you notice that something's happening in the game, like let's just say their left back, he's really not on form today. He's not as quick as usual, whatever. Right. Spot that as a manager and tell your team to go for that weak spot. Put a bit more pressure on that side. Or if you can see that you're copping it on the left so hard as well yourself, then focus on that bit a little bit. Little tweaks in a game can make or break a game. Other things as well. Look at our defending on when it comes to the marking and that for set pieces. We're blatantly zonal marking through and through it. Now, everyone's got different opinions on what zonal is, this and that. Zonal marking, they stick to their bit. They mark who's in their bit. We blatantly know that Vicario's weakest problem is his physicality when it comes to the crunch. Brilliant keeper, but everyone has their weak spot. Right, so if I was a manager, and I'm not a Premier League manager, but to me, this is common sense. Right, two of you, midfielders, defenders, whoever you want to put there, cover the goalkeeper. He's getting bullied all the time. I don't seem to see none of that happening. I maybe see Romero go over there once or twice and give him a bit of backup, or Højbjerg did it. Something like that. That is what I call to adapting in a game. And sometimes when it's just not going your way in a game, do you just stay there and be right stubborn? No, I'm going to play my way and end up getting smacked 3 or 4-0 by a half flank Newcastle team? Or do you think, well, hang on a minute, I'm going to lay off for a moment, let them get their heads back together, and then I'm going to go for it again, and hopefully we can get that goal back and it can go different from there. Not change the system, but to adapt to the games, in the games. Little bits you can change without changing your whole system.
No, look, I get what you're saying, but it does have an effect on the system when you start adapting little bits and pieces. It does sort of alter the system a little. We can't pretend that it doesn't. You know, you're asking him to be a little bit more defensive, which does alter what we're doing, because if you're asking the left back to sit back a little bit more, you're going to have to ask the midfielder to do something extra and stuff. So it does change everything else in and around the system. But look, when it comes to Postecoglou, he told everybody what he was like at the start of the season. I take a step back, and it's up to the players to figure these things out. By him standing on the sideline and adjusting every little thing, making every little decision for these guys, is not going to help them in the long run. They have to learn. That's his model. The onus and the responsibility is on them. You know, he gives them the tools, and it's up to them to go and implement it. People say he doesn't know how to change games. Well, I'm not being brutally honest, but every week most fans have an argument about the players that are sitting on the bench, that they're not good enough to be here. So if we don't have faith they're going to change the game, what makes us think Ange Postecoglou has faith in them that they're going to change the game? Also, last thing I will say is, at Tottenham, we can complain about the board as much as we want trying to change managers. There's truth to that 100%. But the fan base also tries to change managers when they come here. And instead of actually embracing what they're about and asking them to be back fully, we're constantly asking them to change and stuff like that. And we're actually inadvertently doing the board's job for them. If you think about it, what we should be doing is saying, this is our guy, this is his system, you help this guy succeed. Conte came here, who was a winner. Jose came here, who was a winner. We as a fan base try to change them, tell them what to do, this, that, and the other, when they're the ones that have delivered Champions Leagues and leagues around the world and stuff like that. But yet we as a fan base try to change them and ask them to do stuff different. We have to stop doing this with managers at Tottenham Hotspur. We have to embrace what they're about and ask that they're given the full capabilities to do their job.
I totally agree with what you're saying on that one. That's why I'm not one of these Ange out people. Anyone who says Ange out now, just get on with it. I'm not even going to go into that one. It's to me, personal opinion, that's a stupid comment. But for me, he's got 6 months of next season to show that he can adapt during a game.
Sure.
Like I said, it's just little things that you can change in a game. Yes, it's going to have an effect on the team or whatever, but if you need to adapt that just for 10 minutes, you've got to have a plan B. Some people call it tweaking, some people call it twerking, some people call it plan B, C, whatever. Yeah, call it whatever you want. Yeah, but every good manager out there has got a different idea for if something's not going wrong, whether it's for the whole game or whether it's for the moment. Another point I'll give with him, Basuma, he's not a DM. He covered it a couple of times at Brighton, but as a box-to-box midfielder, we saw what the man was about, and he's one of the best in the Premiership. He was the most wanted outside the top 6. Liverpool were going to offer 65 million for him, and he's not a DM. So, and he's had about, 10, 12 games crap on back-to-back, and he's still playing in there. Okay, we don't see what goes on off. But if you want your DM to do a DM's job, you need to put a proper defensive midfielder there. And we got 2 options, depending what way you want to do it. If we want the anchorman style there, Højbjerg, no, not a great player, but I'll lay money on it to do a better job at it than Basuma, because that is not Basuma's position. If you
Well, is
want
Ange not in a position where he can't win with that one, though, Dan? Because everyone's going now Højbjerg because Basuma hasn't worked out. But when Ange arrived, everyone was saying Basuma's the man, Højbjerg isn't, and most of the fan base wanted him sold. So are we not really putting Ange Postecoglou in a position where he can't really win because we're changing our minds every 6 months on who we want to see?
He also does flip back and forth between the two. He likes to choose one or the other. It's not like he's just totally beholden to Basuma every time. When he gets frustrated with Basuma, he rips him right off and, puts Højbjerg in. So he's not completely, I think, stubborn.
He's been that bad most of the time. He shouldn't have even been starting for the past 5 games. Now, I've never been one who said Højbjerg out. If we can get better, then I don't think he's as bad as people make out. But when we was playing Basuma as a box-to-box man with Maddison there, they were 2 of the best links in the Premiership. And even other teams were saying it. But that was when we was playing in box-to-box. As soon as we've started using him as our defensive midfielder, he's fallen to pieces. Whether it was the red card, whether it's a mental issue, whether it's an injury, whether it's whatever. As soon as he went to that DM, he fell to pieces. Now, if you want someone who can handle a DM there, but also be a bit of a deep line playmaker, we've got the man there, Bentancur. He did it for 3 years straight at Juventus and maybe half a season before he left, and got a team of the year twice for it. We've got players there who specifically play for that position. Basuma don't, and it hasn't worked, and it's not working. So why does he keep putting in there? Why does he start in there, leaving it again another 45, 60 minutes that he's had a terrible game back to back like the other 12 games behind him before he makes the change? Shouldn't he just sit there and go, it just blatantly is not working that way with that player. I'm going to try starting Højbjerg or Bentancur there for the, maybe not so much Bentancur because he had the injury, but at least try and put someone there who is specifically meant to play there. Because Basuma is one who I have a main issue with, because he ain't meant to be there.
Yeah, look, I can understand what you're saying there to that degree, and I don't think Ange Postecoglou is blind in that. I think he's sticking with Basuma in that role because he gives him the most legs to, if more than what a Bentancur would and more than what a Højbjerg would, side to side and stuff like that, with how athletic Basuma is. But I do think come the summer you might see a change in that position.
Another thing that Ange could be guilty of this season has been some of the injuries, and people are laying some criticism or some questions towards him, right, about all the frequent injuries that keep picking up during training. We just, of course, heard the news of Destiny Udogie out for the season. Richarlison has picked up some injuries throughout the campaign, mostly during training. Pedro Porro, I think, joins that list. Solomon out for the season, and Perisic out for the season, right, just from training. And this is only to name a few. These are the ones just from my memory alone. Do you feel like Ange is in any way bearing the responsibility on sort of the random injuries that have happened this season? I'll go to you first, Charlie. What do you think? Is it the medical team? Is it Ange? Is it the players? Why are these injuries happening?
I think it's a very intensive way to play football. So injuries are bound to happen, especially like the running. You've got a lot of running Your hamstrings really easy to get injured if you do a lot of running, a lot of fast sprinting. But like, you're not doing it's not a slow game. We're not building up from the back. It's immediately attack. You're going forward, you're going back. It's like in one go. It leads to injuries, and especially with how we play, how physical, how much pressure we get in, it's logical that we are going to get injuries. And with Ange's style, if you go look at Celtic or these other clubs he's managed, he's always had injuries in the first season because the players have to adapt. It's always there. So I think he has seen that a bit, but that's when you need a better squad, like a more well-rounded squad. Because if we don't have a well-rounded squad, or good enough well-rounded squad, you know what I mean? Then we're not going to be able to. Then these injuries are really going to be detrimental to us. We're going to like this now. Doggy's gone. Our left back Davies he's crap. I'm sorry to say, but he isn't good. He isn't doing it for me. So let's say like our left back and right back, if they get injured, we're done. We're not going to be able to compete against the big teams. We're not, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of positions that if we get an injury there, we're completely done. So I think what you're saying, he should have to take into account if he goes into the transfer window. For me, he has to get a lot of like backup players, but like backup players that can compete, not backup like competing players for the first team, not backup players, competing players. That's what I mean. So that's how I feel about it. So
you feel like the injuries are they're inevitable, so you just have to have quality players as the backups in case, because they will happen, in your opinion. They just
they will always happen. Them. Every team in the world, always injuries. And if you don't have a well enough team to compete with the first team, and you have an injury, let's say Son gets injured, we don't have another striker. Or let's say like Udogie or Porro gets injured. We have 0 other right backs or left backs that can compete with them. The rest is miles below them, miles. So let's say we have to play against Foden on the wing. I'm sorry, but Davies won't do crap against him. Davies will be flying. Davies will be literally lying on the floor half the game because he will just get drilled out. I feel like we need a competing bench to the first team, and that's what I think, because injuries are always there. There's never been a team that there's no injury.
You've missed the main man. You've missed the main man, unless I didn't hear you say Van der Ven. Because the minute he's gone, Ange's whole system falls to pieces. Because we rely so much, where we're pushed so high on that one central defender who has come back must have saved us about 15 points now, just on his own. And playing like that.
Give him a contract when he's retired, Dan.
Exactly. The fella's a freak, and that's a compliment. Like I said to you on the show before, he should be part of X-Men, Marvel, whatever. And that. I mean, the way that boy can run is shockingly fast. But when you play like that, you get hamstring injuries. Look what happened to Michael Owen when he finally done his game over for him. Exactly. And if we keep putting that pressure to sprint that much every game, that many times, because we keep getting lobbed over the same way, he's going to end up getting an injury, and then he's going to get a serious tear, and then it'll come to the point where he rips it and his whole game falls to pieces then. And then he'll have to be a total different defender because he won't be able to rely on his pace. He'd still be able to be a defender because it's not quite the same as a striker relying on your pace, but you'd never get the same sort of player out of him again. Yeah. And where he's having to do that game in, game out, every game, how many times does he sprint back? He's going to end up getting damaged in a bad way.
Mm-hmm. And is that on Ange, do you feel like, Dan? Or is that just, like what Charlie says, it's the style of play, and with that style of play will come injuries. It's not really anybody's fault. You just need better backups and better quality when it happens.
Yeah, basically. You can't really blame Ange for it. I mean, he's the one who picks the style of play they play, yeah, but it is the style of play. It's not as though he's just going red raw on them on the training and everything for it to be different on the pitch. Mm-hmm. It's just the way we play, basically. But again, if we keep playing like that and we haven't got the cover, and the problem is with Van der Ven, you're not going to get cover for him. Not like that. Never. Like I say, he might as well be a mutant the way that man can run. He's shockingly, stupidly fast. I mean, he's quicker than Walker, for God's sake. And you're not going to get another defender that can cover that much ground that quick.
I understand what you mean, but I think he's even reliant on like other players and what they bring. Like even Romero, right? He's probably one of our best passers from out of the back line. He breaks the lines of, the opposition with ease, really, compared to the rest of the players. And if we were to lose him, we would automatically lose one of our best players on the ball from building out from the back. If we, drop Vicario, right? Vicario's, absolute crack, behind the sticks, and he saves almost everything. And then we would be hurt in that regard. I think we're dependent on a lot of players in every position, because I've said this before to Dave, it does feel like what Ange does demand of some of these guys in each position is almost at times like being the perfect version of that player. Like Mickey van de Ven is almost the perfect, kind of Rolls Royce of the center back. And that's what Ange needs. And compared to other styles of play, might not always, be great to have a Rolls Royce defender, but maybe you don't necessarily need it as much because you're not demanding as much of them in terms of their instructions or what they're really being asked to do. And feels like Ange, it's not just Van de Ven, it's other positions around the pitch where he does really demand a lot out of them and does expect a lot from them. And then with that pressure, with that, expectation, can come injuries, can come, kind of some sluggishness or whatever it might be. So I don't know. I don't even think that really falls on Ange, though, because the opposite of that would be like David Moyes or something where, the guys never sprint, for the entirety of the game and preserve themselves for the whole season. So it just, there's kind of one or the other. And Ange has gone for the more, like on the front foot approach. Injuries can come with that.
Quick question for you then, just personal. Who do we miss more? Who would you rather go? Obviously, you don't want no one getting injured, but who would you rather, if one has to go for 5 matches, who would you rather lose, Van de Ven or Romero? Who do we miss more?
Oh, do you know what?
Van de Ven, 100%.
I'll be brutally honest. Go on, Charlie.
Yeah, you have your hand raised as well, Charlie.
Yeah, we've got Dragusin, and I think we got him to compete with the first 11. So to get Romero plays like Dragusin. Like he's a bit less quality, but he does play like him. He's very aggressive, goes into the tackles, and is way more like front forward. So to say Romero going, we do not have that pace. We'll see that we'll just get taken every counter. Every counter will be gone. All those fast wingers, all those fast attackers will destroy us. So Van de Ven we can't miss, never. And about the thing, the way we do play, we do get more injuries than an average side because we do run more. So it does. There's a bit on the manager on that. Like not as if I'm saying it's his fault, but it always is the way you play. The more injuries, like the like it shows the level. If you don't run a lot, you don't get a lot of injuries. But if you run a lot, you get more injuries. So it's a bit on the manager. He should have taken that into account a bit, like not a lot. I'm just saying like a little bit. So that's how I feel about that.
Do you know what? Just on the injuries, for me, I think this is a problem at Tottenham, and I don't blame Ange Postecoglou for it. We had injury crisis last season under Antonio Conte for large parts of the season that no one really speaks about. Under Jose Mourinho, it was happening as well.
True.
The problem we've got at Tottenham is we tend to get a good 8-9 sort of players on the pitch, and you make up the rest with an 11, and you get a strong enough 11 to go and sort of compete week in, week out. But we have to use them every single game. We've seen in years gone by, you can't rely on squad players in cup games because we go out and it doesn't matter whether you're playing Fulham in the Premier League or whether you're playing what was that shit team we played there across Europe in the Europa Conference League and got embarrassed. I can't even remember now. It's
Vitesse, NS Moura, a few of them, not just one.
Teams we've gone out to in the first round of the FA Cup and stuff like that. We can't rely on them. So therefore, every manager's put in a position where if he doesn't want to lose games, he has to roll out the same team every time. And we are way too over-reliant on our top players. You look at Man City, for instance, this season. Yes, De Bruyne is a big miss. But even when he was fit and available, Guardiola still held him back till he was 100% ready. We will never, ever, and we never have had that luxury at Tottenham to be able to go, no, you'll sit here until you're 100% ready. We rushed Bentancur back from injury. We rushed Van de Ven back from injury, which he ended up getting re-injured and stuff like that. It's an inherent problem at Tottenham Hotspur, and this is where we need the squad. We can sit here and say, yes, it is down to the system. I agree with Charlie. You run harder, you run faster, you're more susceptible to injuries. It's just the nature of the game. It's the way it is. But with the way modern football is and the demands on players now, including international football, which clubs let their players go, they're playing so much more games. Injuries are going to happen. They're part and parcel of the sport now and the frequency they are. So for me, it's about just beefing out that squad and having players that are of a decent standard, that when you do rely on them, when you do call them in, they're not affecting your system completely. We're not having conversations like we are today about maybe having to drop the line back a little bit to suit someone like Ben Davies and his abilities and stuff like that. If we get a proper squad in here, you won't have to do that in future, and that's where we need to get to. One last thing I would say is, I believe there's a guy called Geoff Scott. I think he's over the medical department or he's in it. That guy's been around for quite some time. I remember playing Football Manager 2007, and he was the head of my medical department team back then. And I wonder, does there need to be a change up in that as well? Because he's still there to this day. I checked it there last week. You're on mute, Jack.
Who knows?
He made a lot of friends, that guy, Scott, over the years with Lamella, Gio Lo Celso, plenty of those sort of players. Charlie brought up something, though, and I thought it was kind of a good transition. And it's kind of still in the same vein of injuries, but it was about, right, like when these injuries do occur, we have to then go with someone else. And if the person that is the backup is a huge cost to the style of play, to even our general performances, then we probably know that that guy's really not good enough, actually, for the long term with this Ange Postecoglou system. Two players that have been kind of, on people's minds when it comes to that are Emerson Royale and then Ben Davies. Ben Davies, you've mentioned a few times there, Charlie. So, I mean, is he somebody that you just don't really envision or see as like a long-term squad role type of player? Because I know a lot of people, even Paul Connor in the chat, he hates that term squad player, squad role, right? But you mentioned, right, we need somebody that can fill in, can be almost as good, if not better, than the starting player. Do you feel like Ben Davies, Emerson Royale, are they perhaps not good enough to be realistic sort of contenders or, guys to compete with for those positions?
Well, for a team that's challenging for top 8, I think he's good enough. But for a team that wants to go for the title, wants to win all these things, have all these high expectations, like I don't hate him. Don't think that. I think I like him. But this season he's been improved so much to last season, but he just isn't cutting it. And it doesn't matter how I see him. If I love it, if he's my favorite player ever, he just isn't good enough. And instead of like dogging all that stuff, we just need like maybe even better players on the bench. Like we just need the best bench possible because our style of play can't work with these mediocre players. It just can't. You know what I mean? Every time we get on a worse player, it doesn't work out. It just doesn't. That's why the bench is so important next season, because if we do not have a bench that can compete, we're not going to do anything.
It seemed like you were talking about Ben Davies mostly. How do you feel about Emerson quickly? Do you think he also falls in that bracket?
Well, again, I think he's improved this year, but he's in the same bracket. He is. So I don't think he's good enough. There's the same thing there.
What about you, Dave? And then we'll get to the Big D here. Good to see you, the Big D. Hopefully you're keeping well this evening. I mean, on the injuries and, what comes with that are players who have to fill in and do exactly what the starter was doing to the best of their ability. Ben Davies, Emerson Royale, are they actually good enough guys to compete with for, the starting positions?
Look, I don't really want to see Ben Davies anywhere near the team anymore. And I've made that quite vocal for years. I made it quite vocal when I started coming onto YouTube. I highlighted Winks, Dyer, Davies, people like that are just not the players that everyone thinks they are to carry this club forward. And I've been proven right. How Ben Davies is still around, I'm not quite so sure. I have my own theory if people want to hear it. People accuse Harry Kane of bringing Eric Dyer everywhere. Well, I know Ben Davies and Son are very, very close. So,
very good friends.
Get around because of Sonny. I'll make that argument back. But anyway, stop with my pettiness. Look, what I would say is, for me, Ben Davies shouldn't even be here to be in contention for left back. We've got a perfectly good left wing back out on Brentford, going forward, delivering crosses left, right, centre, week in, week out. We should have kept him around instead of keeping Ben Davies around. Ben Davies tries hard. He'll go out there, he'll put his all in. But a lot of the time, it's just not good enough. And usually, it's you drop off in quality. It's my biggest concern about Ben Davies and Emerson at fullback is I'm not so concerned about Emerson defensively. I actually think defensively, he's got it locked down. It's going forward and how we're going to progress the ball out from the back. Arsenal in the documentary under Arteta, his one thing was go and press Tottenham Hotspur. Now, we slapped them 3-0 that day. But if they press us this time, they're going to get a lot of joy. They watched Newcastle do it last week. They watched Fulham do it to a certain degree and Brighton. They will get a lot of joy, especially with the likes of Emerson and Davies, because they're just a step down in quality in terms of Porro and Adoji on the ball. They don't offer anywhere near it. And this is a part of Tottenham's problem down the years. We've been conditioned to be, the players you've got, you're not going to get any better in their position. So what we're going to do is bring in squad players. When really what we should be doing, the only player that really has his sort of spot nailed on is Son. No one is at that level in the rest of this team. Maybe Romero is getting there. But everyone else is replaceable, or at least bringing competition to let them hunt down their place to see if they can get in ahead of them. We're not at the point where we have Son, Kane, Toby, Jan Vertonghen and stuff, and you can't really buy much better. These guys, they're still young. They're going to make mistakes. They're not the finished articles. So now is the right time to fill this squad out with genuine competition, because then we don't have to have these conversations. We don't have to be scared. How many FA Cups games do we going into going, The manager has to change the team, but he shouldn't, because it's going to cost us. We know every single time we go into these cup games, we can't have these feelings anymore. We shouldn't be having these conversations heading into North London derbies, about, average players, more so Ben Davies than Emerson. I like Emerson. I think if he just done one touch and moved the ball on instead of thinking he's Ronaldinho, I think he'd actually help himself so much more and actually look like a better player. But we just need to start bringing in genuine quality so we can stop these conversations. Man City have missed De Bruyne and Haaland for large parts of this season and got by. There wasn't as massive talk about it. Look at the injuries that Liverpool have carried and other teams have carried. They seem to cope with them a lot better than what we do, and that needs to change. But look, I would look at getting a defence out there that doesn't include Ben Davies at the weekend if it was possible.
Well, either way on that, we're sort of, I'm just thinking of the right phrase to use here. We're sort of done if we do and done if we don't, because the first thing I thought of was straight away off the top of my mind is stick Van der Ven out on the left, because he has played that for under 21s and that. And he could handle the pace of getting forward and getting back with someone like Saka there as well. And then I thought about it straight away, like, no, hang on. If we go and do that, then we definitely shoot ourselves in the foot, because we desperately need him in the middle. What you said about Royale, do you know what? I can meet you halfway on that one. I don't think he's as terrible as people make out, yeah? As a right back, he's all right. He's not good, but he's better than Porro when it comes to tackling. Porro is a better wing back. The problem is with Royale is as soon as he looks at the halfway line, he looks like he's going to have a panic attack, let alone get to the halfway line, So with this style of play, Royale is just a no-go, basically, because
you're going to be camped in the opposition half most of the time. Yeah,
he's just, it is not his style of play. And with Porro there as well, I just feel we'd get so much more out of the man playing him on an overlapping, but then that's questioning the style and everything else. But I do believe that Royale is actually a better right back than Porro. But Porro is definitely a significantly better overall player and wing back as such. I look on Royale similar to Højbjerg.
Oh, I knew you were about to say that. I was about to ask you that.
You're hitting all of Jack's notes now.
No, it's not. I think I view Emerson slightly more favorably, but the way that you were talking about Emerson there sounded very similar to how you were just talking about Højbjerg.
I don't rate either of them in particular, yeah? We shouldn't have to be looking at players to an extent of those substandards to cover our other players. The way I take Spurs seriously, when we go and make 2 or 3 transfers that go bang, 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 straight away they're in the team. And then it goes on to the next transfers, and I see us go by another 2 players that is just as good as 2 of the 3 players we got there. That the second that one of those players does something wrong, like say on the wing, he puts 2 dodgy crosses in, he's already looking over his shoulder because he knows he's lost his next 2 games because the man behind him is just as good to take his place. And until I see that happen at Spurs, I can't ever take the club serious. And one other point, on the Ange thing, he's the one who did state, I will pick these players. Whoever comes into this club, this squad, is who I want. My man goes and buys Werner, then he's lost another 50% off of me.
Yeah, that's
I get him for the loan. I get him for the loan on why we got him. I think for a gap stop, it just done the job. It filled the place. He's a poor man's son, isn't he? Plays exactly the same way, but he's just crap at it.
Very poor man's son.
He can't finish.
You think Ange needs to be ruthless, basically? Like he needs to.
Yes, Spurs as a whole need to be ruthless. We're not. The fans need to be more ruthless. I think Tottenham as a whole, fans in general, club, we're too accepting. And we finally saw a manager, like with our last one that we had, that was not. And I'm hoping Ange is going to be like Conte. I don't want this man in my team. He was a gap filler, fine. Yeah. But I don't want him bought in this team. If we go and buy Werner, when it's him who stated I pick them, I've now got double questions on my man.
Interesting, and Werner seems like falls in that sort of category for you. The guys
Same
might be not good enough
Royale, basically.
Not good enough to compete for the starting positions. The big D though coming in here, and he's also just you go ahead, Dave. You're about to say.
Go on, Charlie. You got your hand up there quickly.
Sorry, Charlie.
We'll get you in, and then we'll take this from Big D.
There's one more thing I have to say. Everyone that says we're going to the challenge for the title, every other team in the league, I've said this on Dan Channel, I've said this on Tottenham Way, every other team in the league is still improving. We've got Chelsea, who's 13th. We've got West Ham. We've got all these clubs that are still buying players. It's not only us. So let's say we get 3 good players. But that does not mean we're going to go challenge for the title, because every other team in the league is doing the same thing. That's the only thing I'd say, because you know what I mean?
Every other team is looking to improve as well.
It's not as if we get 3 players, that means that we will challenge for the title, because City's going to get 4 players, Liverpool's going to get 3 players, Newcastle's going to get a resurge next season because they'll have no Champions League. West Ham's going to look better. All these clubs that are falling off this year, like Brighton, they're going to be better next year because they won't have Europe. They're going to be challenging for top 4. So all this thing about, oh yeah, we'll challenge for the title, I think it's like kind of like absolute crap, because everyone is going to improve. It's not only us. Everyone. We could get the 4 best players in the world. That does not matter. Everyone is improving.
It's a very good point, Charlie. Very good point. And I agree with that, it's going to come to that where we might realize that while we feel like we're improving, all of a sudden, the boys across the road, or, maybe the big Manchester clubs buying another £100 million player that everybody wanted. And it happens every summer. And we will look on probably with some jealousy. The Big D says, start season with VAR. I truly believe is what's causing a lot of injuries with all the clubs this year. Hope Ange has a game plan without Udogie. Come on, you Spurs. I kind of thought that. Yeah, Dave, sorry.
I was going to say on the VAR part, I think you might be alluding to when Van de Ven came off against Chelsea. Remember, there was like a 10-minute sort of stoppage, and then all of a sudden he went to go open up again, and bang, gone.
I was going to take it a step further, Dave. Actually, I was going to say stop-start kind of nature in the games, but it's also been a stop-start season, right? Where we haven't actually had the benefit sometimes of playing maybe a couple of games in a week on a regular basis to kind of get that familiarity with each other, familiarity with the system even, right? Because these guys only play once a week. So that can be hard to just, only have, right, 6 days, where you're playing every 6 days instead of maybe every 3 or 4, where you can try to finer tune things like maybe other teams have this season. But that stop-start kind of nature could be affecting some of the injuries, but he also feels like the stop-start nature of just the games in general, from either the VAR checks or, the random kind of, I guess stoppages of play when the referee, puts his hand to his ear, all that sort of thing seems to contribute to it. Would you agree with him? Like that just stop-start nature is the real reason for all the teams picking up injuries? Because it's not just us. Newcastle, plenty of other teams have had pretty bad injuries.
No, 100%. Look, I definitely think VAR has something to do with it. I think the added matches on international football has something to do with it. The creation of the UEFA Nations League and stuff like that. But also, how many times this season have we gone 2 weeks without a game, even though there's been no international football? We've been left idle. This is like the second time over the course of the back end of this season. It's and I do agree with them, because players, when you listen to players and stuff, they do they often say, I'd rather be playing matches than training. I don't want to train. Training's the hard part. I want to be out there playing games and stuff like that. That's what they'll always say to you. So it definitely has a part to do with it. But this VAR is the biggest thing. When you're sitting there waiting 5-10 minutes, which is always the case in Tottenham games, for decisions to be made, it kills momentum. But again, when there's a reason why players warm up right before they go out on the pitch. They warm up to get their body up to temperature, to get it moving and stuff like that, so that it sort of minimizes the risk of movement, because they say if you go straight into something, you have more chance of being an injury. So effectively, when VAR stops the game and they're sitting there for 2-3 minutes trying to work out what a straight line, what isn't, I mean, did they go to school or not? When they're trying to work out what a straight line is, and takes 2 to 3 minutes, that's exactly what the players are doing. They're going cold and starting again, and that's where a lot of these injuries are coming in and stuff like that. So for me, I definitely think the Big D has definitely hit the nail on the head there. As game plan without Udogie, it'd be very interesting, because if we think we're going to see Ben Davies making late runs into the box, almost third man runs into the box like Udogie does, forget about it. The guy doesn't know whether to get to the halfway line or not. He's often been caught out. So we'll wait and see what happens there in that regard. Go on, Jack.
What would be your back 4 then, Dave? Maybe I could ask the others as well, just for Big D, so we can get some clarity. What would be your back 4? What would be your game plan without Udogie?
Look, in an ideal world, Porro will be back, but we're going to go without Porro just in case. So we'll go Emerson right back. No, I'm going to go Romero right back. I'm going to move Dragusin into right-sided centre back with Van de Ven, and push Emerson out to left back, where he's played a lot of times this season. Also, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dragusin coming at right back. He played right back before he's moved to Juventus initially and stuff like that. So might see something a bit peculiar from Ange. And if he does, I want everyone to come out and applaud him if he makes a decision like that. Because, Jack, you know where I'm at. There's no point in giving Ben Davies a game. You know, it's almost like giving the guy a testimonial. You know, he doesn't have any plans for him. He's not good enough to be in this squad. It's like, I want to see the new now. If we go down to Arsenal and Ange just tried something and we're not sitting there moaning about Davies not tracking runners and stuff like that, look, I'm not going to be happy about it, but I said, you know what? Fair play. At least you tried something different. I do not want to see us keep persisting with the old players that we know what's going to happen.
That's the game plan you would rather see.
Exactly what I've been saying to you the whole time. You want to see
but I'm not
try
twisting.
something
I'm
a
not
little bit
tweaking
different.
I'm tweaking the lineup, Dan.
But it's still having the bottle to change something.
Yeah.
Okay. Davies isn't your man there, whatever, and that. And we know Davies is going to go at the end of the season. Let's just say that's what's going to happen and whatever. Okay, let's just try something. Let's go and put him there. Maybe it's not the best game to do it in, but I had someone try and pull me the other night on like, yeah, well, he's had the balls to stick Royale and Davies in the middle. What have you got to say about that? I said, well, he didn't have a bloody option then, did he? Apart from Eric Dyer, he had no option but to do that. He had to. It weren't out of his choice that I thought, you know what, that ain't going right. So I tried that and that. I agree with what you're saying there, definitely. I'd go for Dragusin on the right personally, because like you say, he did play at Genoa a few times, and as far as I know, he does cover it for his country. It's just on the left. Again, it's like I think we're done and dusted whether we do or don't, whether it's Royale or Davies there, really. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation, isn't it? It's just what one do you take the gamble with? So
Dave's suggestion is the first time I've heard that one, though. Everybody else has put the most common one I've heard is Van de Ven at left back, Dragusin at left-sided center back with Romero, and then Emerson. And Dave has definitely gone for a different combination there, which I think is the same group of players, right? But just different sort of orientation of he's torqued
Dragusin at left-sided centre back. Dragusin at left-sided centre back will cause us problems. He couldn't handle it against Fulham. He's not going to handle it in a North London derby.
Well, I think the big D, that's the game plan that Dave is going to go for. We'll see if Mr. Ange is going to come up with something similar. Rick in Rio, no longer in Rio. Sorry about that, Rick, because I think everybody would love to be in Rio. Member for 8 months, and he says, big up, lads. Pint pre-kickoff Sunday, Dave. Come on, you Spurs, Dave. I'm not sure if you would enjoy a pint, but you would enjoy a pint of an ice cold Coke.
Look, if the weather's starting to go by what we're getting here lately, Coke, ice, and a slice of lemon, absolutely critical. Tops off it, gives it that little bit of kick that you need. I'm not a drinker, Rick and Rio, but I'd happily sit there. You know, I'm not one of these you can't drink around me. I mean, work away. I've been with Jack. You know, he'll have a few pints around me and stuff like that. So work away. I just prefer not to drink and have a glass of Coke. But 100%. Look, I think what I might end up having to do is just find a place where I land, because there's so many people that want to meet up. I think it's just easier if I bring people to maybe the one spot and we can all just have a big Irish Hotspur happy clap. And, you know, that'd be good heading into the North London derby. But Rick and Rio, get in contact, email, you know, one of the socials, no problem. Let's sort something out, brother. Big yourself up. And then we also
of a potluck, a happy clap. I said a version of a potluck, a happy clap for all the fans. And then THFC Till I Die has thrown in a winky face at us, Dave. It's maybe because we haven't mentioned his boy Johnson yet. That's probably why, or he might have enjoyed actually the Højbjerg love that Dan was giving earlier. Maybe it was the Højbjerg glove that we were bringing up earlier that got Dermot excited. Big up to Dermotron. Hopefully he's okay. And then Steve D, we also saw in the house joining us. Big up to the Steve D, the one and only. We're going to keep things moving, though, here, everybody. And one of the questions I do have as well is just sort of, you know, Maddison or to not to Maddison. This is maybe the last one that we'll go with here. And James Maddison, has he shown you enough this season? I'll go to you first, Charlie. Has he shown you enough as a top number 10? And if you were to compare him to, let's say, other English, maybe kind of number 10 like players as a Foden, maybe a Palmer, Gibbs White, or a Grealish, do you think he's been better than them this season? What do you make of James Maddison?
First 10 games of the season, he was out of this world. It felt like we've seen a whole new Maddison. It felt like he was in his groove, playing out of this world. But once he got to that Chelsea game, he got kicked. And then he got that injury. And since that injury, we have not seen the same Maddison. And to compare him to Foden and all that stuff, I'd love to compare him to the first 10 games. But after those 10 games, it felt like he's slack. Like completely slack. I love Maddison, but the last 10 games or like 15 games, he has not done a lot. He has like the games he's played now, they've always been a bit slacky. He hasn't done the same moves, hasn't been in the same groove, hasn't done the same energy. And I know Ange is putting it back a bit more, but he isn't making those passes. Johnson, all these players, he isn't doing that anymore. It feels like he's lost his creativity. And like if you look at the stats, he has not made a lot of assists in the last 15 games. The assists were all in the first 10 games. The goals were all in the first 10 games. He has not done anything. And even if you look at like I'm just not too happy with how he's playing now. It feels like he's slacked off. That's how I feel. So first 10 games, 10, last 15 games, a fall. That's how I feel.
I actually liked your use of the stats there, Charlie, to provide some context, right? Well done there, especially coming from as a Yank myself. I do love when someone can throw in, a good stat to help the point. What do you think, Dan? James Maddison, I mean, it's a tough one to figure out because like Charlie brought up, really brilliant in the beginning of the season. After those 10 games, after he took that injury, it's been a different story.
Well, Maddison is, pardon me. Maddison is one that I was screaming for us to get for about 3 years because he's probably one of the best number 10 playmakers, English ones. He's right up there with it when he's on his form. But Leicester did warn us, many of the fans did warn us that as soon as he gets a little injury, which he does nearly every season, he definitely comes off form. The question I've got with Maddison is more than anything, though. Again, this is where we don't know what goes on behind. But this is another reason why I don't like the inverted wing-backs either. He seems to be dropping a lot deeper all the time. Is he dropping a lot deeper because he's having to do a Harry Kane to come back and get the ball? Or is he dropping a lot deeper because he's getting blocked up front? Like I've seen him several times get blocked by Porro, Udogie and Sarr, where he's really got no space to look and put a good direct ball through or whatever. Or is it the way he's being told to do it? Or does it just come down to the fact that he's had an injury and just can't get back in form? There's several things I could think of, but it could be any one of them for me because I don't know a number 10 or a playmaker that likes to stand there with a man 6 yards that way, 6 yards that way. I've always known them. They like the bit of space around them, get into the bit of space because they got the open eye for the ball that no one else has. And we haven't got no one else with that capability of doing anything close to what he does. The only one who could really cover that position, I do mean cover slightly, is Kulusevski. And we play him in the wrong position anyway. I don't quite know what's going on with Maddison in that aspect. Is he doing it because he's been told to drop back so far? Because he's never played like that before. He's always played up front or out on the left. And he might have hung about on the halfway line to get forward again, but he's coming back all the time.
Yeah.
Or is it down to an injury? Is it down to what? I don't know. There could be several things here.
Yeah. Charlie, you had your hand up for a second.
Yeah, I think with Maddison, it's especially like at the start, he was making all these impressive passes, impressive plays. And since he hasn't been doing that, it feels like he's been going back more because even if you play as a central defensive midfielder, it does not like cut you off to give those nice balls, those good chances. And I feel like it's a bit of his own fault because let's say I'm a midfielder. I'm playing my game, but let's say I go to CDM, you know what I mean? I go back, I still can play the same game because it's still, you know what I mean? This is a very bad comparison, guys. Just scrap that. I mean, what I basically mean is he is a creative player. So it doesn't really matter if he goes a bit more back, he still can make creative chances. He still can make these nice balls. He can still make these nice runs. He's just back a bit more. He's back 10 yards. That does not mean he can't do all these runs. He can't do all these passes. So that's why I think it's more on himself than you can say on Ange because then Maddison is a vice captain or like a, what's it called? I don't know what you call it. Like a second.
Yeah, he's one of the captains.
Yeah, vice captain.
He can stand up for himself. Like if Sarr or Udogie's in his field, he stands up for himself. He's a vice. Like if he wants to become the captain, he has to be able to stand up for himself. If you can't stand up for yourself against a 21-year-old player, even though you're a 27-year-old player or something like that,
Charlie, if they're only doing what the manager has told them to do, he's got no right to stand there and do that.
But he still isn't playing well. But he still should be able to do these things that he isn't doing. He's not.
Yeah. Why is he coming back 10 yards? Because, like you said, with those passes, you can't put those passes through from an extra 10 yards because now you're asking the man to do like 30, 40-yard passes instead of 20, 10-yard passes. We need him as that number 10 sitting just behind, just open play to put those direct balls through to, dare I say it, Werner run on to, not that you get much out of it, or Johnson to come into, or Kulusevski, or to put Son on the run. You need him up there. him coming back that 10 yards is no favours whatsoever, because then he can't use his passing to the full capability.
I don't think he is using his
again,
passing to the full capability when he gets the chance, though, Dan, because when I do see him drop deep, I understand what you mean, right? Like, it's getting so clogged up in there that it is hard for him to find the right pass, or it's just frustrating. But when he does even drop deep, he'll still just pass it sideways, or he'll still just pass it backwards. And when you watch like a guy like Luka Modric at the age of 40,000 years old or whatever he is, he's still spraying passes left and right, looking sideways, scanning the pitch. I don't even know if James Maddison is doing that as much as he was in the first 10 games. I don't see him scanning. I don't see him looking for those switches of play. Even Højbjerg, who you and I have found a love for here on this, I think he sprays the play and switches play more often than even Maddison does, and will take those 30-yard, 40-yard passes more often than actually what James should be. And also, he's the number 10. Like, he's the guy that should be doing this on a consistent basis. I understand, like, it's tough. It gets clogged up, gets congested, but he's the one that should be able to figure it out no matter what. You would give other players, I think, that excuse, not necessarily the number 10 all the time, because he is the guy that is kind of supposed to unlock, and supposed to figure out when things get frustrating. And I just think he's playing within himself. You look at Johnson, sometimes he's doing what Charlie's doing. He's raising his hand, he's asking for the pitch there, asking for the ball, and he never sprays it to him. Usually you see Højbjerg or someone else have to do it. And that's where my frustration with him is that he drops deep, like you say, but then he doesn't actually switch the play or try something different. He just kind of gives it back to who he got it from.
Okay, 2 points I'll give to you quickly on that one, yeah? One thing that really gets at me with this team is we take more chances in front of our own bloody goal than we do in the other one.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
It does my head right in. Right, there's a 50-50 chance that pass works. We'll do it straight across the keeper. Yeah, up the other end, no. We won't make that pass unless there's an 80% chance it goes through. Maddison's the only one who was doing that. But is that not now happening because the manager has said, I want control of this ball at all times. Do not pass it unless you are 90% sure it's going to go through.
No.
Because when they're up there, it's either the players haven't got a clue what they're doing and they're just tip, tap for 10, 15 minutes, for 10 minutes up there, whatever, which 80% control of a game wins you nothing. You have to score the goal. To get a chance, you have to make a chance, and we don't seem to make any chances, or very rarely. So is it because he's being told to, no, hold on to the ball, wait until you've got that perfect chance? Because he was always one who'd say if it was even 30%, he'd still take that chance. And now he doesn't. We just seem to want to hold the ball.
I think for me, when I look at it, I think when it comes to James Maddison, he's not being told not to orchestrate. Postecoglou's whole philosophy is possession with a purpose. He says it himself, possession with a purpose. He wants to go and score goals. I think the problem with Maddison, I think what we've got is, I know a lot of people are, talk about the inverted fullbacks, the wingers, the striker and stuff like that. But the inverted wingers are just there to make runs. If he doesn't feed them, he puts it out to the wingers because they're left there hugging the touchline, or try and feed Son. There are actually options for him that James Maddison just completely ignores. People go on like they're clogging his space. They're not. They're making runs off the ball for him. He doesn't want to find them. When it also comes to James Maddison, the reason why he's not producing anywhere near he is at the start of the season is because the forward line is absolute crap. It stinks to high heaven. Werner is useless in front of goal. Johnson, he's hit and miss. Between them, you might make a full brain in terms of football. Son is not a striker. Earlier on in the season, he had Kulu out on the right, Son out on the left, and Richarlison through the middle. We had players that were running, players that were, a lot better on the ball, players that may be a bit more consistent. But the fan base doesn't want Kulu in the team anymore. They don't want Richarlison anywhere near it, But that's a half of Maddison's problem, is he's not feeding the same guys that he was in the first 10 games. And there lies a lot of your problem. The other problem with James Maddison is, like, I do take the point that he's dropping back to try and get the ball. That should be the guy in the number 6 role to progress that up to him, and he should be sitting in behind the opposition's midfield looking to get space, get turned, right? But even when he does drop back, I mean, Maddison has a passing range on him. Why can't he get on that ball and be more commanding like other players do? Charlie's right. He's captain. He should be there orchestrating. If someone ain't making a run, bollock them until they do make that run. Orchestrate them around the place. He's supposed to be a leader. But with Bissouma, and I've said this before, I think Basuma's got a lot to his game, but the one thing he really lacks in that number 6, which means we constantly have to play the same way out and these little intricate passes, is he either doesn't have a passing range or he chooses not to use it. One or the other. If he had a bit more passing range, we could hit them wingers early and we wouldn't be so heavily reliant on someone like Maddison all the time that we are. So I think it's twofold in that regard. But where people are missing the woods between the trees, great expression, by the way, you've used that twice today. But he's not feeding the same guys he was in the first 10 games. That's your problem.
Different players,
I can see where you're going there. And the thing you just said there, I think it just proves a point that a few people have made. With Basuma, he doesn't make those passes. Why? Because he's not a DM to make them passes. He's a box-to-box who likes to run with the ball. And he tries to do it from the DM space. And that's where he gets caught out, isn't it? Or where he gets caught out with a sloppy pass across the goal. That is not Basuma. And you know what? With the up-front three, I totally agree. I mean, I've had arguments with enough people about it, not just debates, that Johnson to me is, all right, he's got potential, but for me, the only way he's got better is you see him for 10 minutes in a game now, not 5 minutes in a game, because he just shows up for a couple of minutes and then he'll score or he'll set one up and then he disappears. And then when you've got someone like Werner standing there who couldn't even score in Amsterdam at a nightclub sort of thing, your options are limited, aren't they? And Son is about our only option as someone who can actually score properly. I mean, Richarlison, I don't rate the player at all, but we don't play into his capabilities. His capability is heading the ball, but we don't have no one who can cross a bloody ball except for Porro. There needs to be a lot of changes. We need to get the right players in as well, isn't it?
Just quickly, Dan, just to push a little bit against Maddison once again. Some people have brought up this theory that he's been a bit hot-headed at times, where he gets too distracted by the Neil Mopais and kind of shithousery that people put up with, and that actually distracts from his game. Do you agree with that, or is it the opposite, that actually helps him?
I don't know. I suppose that depends what sort of person you are, isn't it? Some people like that extra pressure on them to then turn around and barge them out of the way and show them up. Other people like Romero, who's been a hell of a lot better for it, take it almost very personal and will retaliate on it. And Maddison was lucky he didn't get a red card the other week. That was a red card for me all day long by the way the rules are. If I go back to how I used to play, used to get a broken nose and you got told to shut up and keep playing, basically. But we know it don't work like that anymore. You could be right there. You could be totally right. Maybe he's letting his mind go elsewhere. Who knows? Only he knows what he thinks. But then he's been a player long enough now to should know if someone's just trying to wind him up. I mean, the thing I feel for him, he's similar to Saka in the aspect of the amount he gets taken out.
He gets
because
kicked a
people
lot.
People know with Arsenal, one of their main man, Saka, take him out, you've taken out part of the problem. Everybody knows. I mean, Spurs as a blueprint are the easiest team in the Premiership to read to know how to play against. And everybody knows we have got no one who can pass that ball and set it up like Maddison. Take him out with a couple of dirty tackles. That's already half a Spurs game gone.
Yeah. And he's someone that does look like you can't get in his head. And I think the problem with that is when he's not playing well and he gets someone riling him up, it actually makes him play worse, because then he's not already playing well as it is. And then this other player is distracting him and kind of helping him or, stay distracted from getting back to his best self. Whereas if he is playing really well and then, someone's messing with him, you think you'd then take it to another level because he's already playing so well. He wants to prove you, wrong, or just wants to show you up. But the way he's playing right now, which isn't with the most confidence or as well as he was playing in the beginning of the season, it's like an unnecessary distraction. I agree with you that Romero would be someone who I wouldn't get as concerned about if he gets caught up in all the kind of shithousery in it all, because he seems to actually become weirdly a better player when he has some personal vendetta against someone kind of on the pitch or whatever it may be. Charlie, you have your hand up there?
There's one more thing I'm pretty annoyed with Maddison. His free kicks. I know we haven't had a lot of free kicks, but all the free kicks he has taken have not been good. And he is a player that has to have a good free kick. So who is going to take a free kick? So I know Son's there, but Son let Højbjerg take the free kick.
I think Porro
takes the other free kick.
He takes it, but I'm talking about from like attacking wise. Porro takes a brilliant free kick from far away, but from close to the goal, I'd say Maddison. I'd take Maddison over Porro or Son. But Son just got. Son has got what's it called? Son just Højbjerg. He just literally chose over. He just Son let Højbjerg go shoot a free kick instead of himself.
Yeah.
So I know he's the captain, but as a captain, you shouldn't do that because Son is miles better.
I agree
That
with
is why Son shouldn't be a captain.
Yeah, that's why I don't want him to be a captain
In
too.
my eyes.
He is not. I love the player, but he's not hard enough. He's not hard enough. He's so polite. I mean, like, if you kick him, he'd say, "Oh, sorry, did I hurt you?" I mean, like, he is so bloody polite. We should have like Romero as a captain. Imagine that the whole team would get riled up, fired up, go into the game. You know what I mean? But that's what I mean. What my point was, Maddison should be taking better free kicks because he is one of those players that has to have a good free kick. And the free kicks we have seen from him have not been that great. I know the first free kick he did take was an assist to Romero, but the rest have not been amazing. And we want to see that from him, especially because we don't get a lot of them. And the ones we do get, we want to see good ones.
No, definitely agree with you there, Charlie. I think we are starting to reach, though, kind of the end of the show here, everyone. And I just want to say, absolute cracking debuts from these two guys, from Dan here and Charlie. So please, everybody in the chat, do thank them for giving up their time this evening. Thank them as well for making a lot of sense, speaking their minds, giving their opinions. And I think it's been a very good show. What do you think? What do you think, Dave?
No, look, I really enjoyed it. You know, it was a good combination. You know, we all don't sort of see eye to eye on things, but I really enjoy it. You know, it sort of expands the conversations and stuff. So thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. And like I said to everybody, you know, these guys did drop everything they were doing last minute to sort of come on here for us. So make sure you give them a lot of love in the comment section below, even after this show has ended. But before we go, I mean,
we got some
anything you
to
want to
plug
say
here
to the Spurs fans out there? Anything you want to plug, Charlie? I know we'll let Dan plug his now in a second.
Wait. So you're going to Dan off to me?
No, go to you first, lad. Have you anything to plug in that?
Okay. Today after this, I'm going to make my first Spurs video, so that will be up in the next day. So be up Charlie Spurs and 17 on YouTube. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm on there a lot. Instagram, I'm trying to get more active, but I'm going to try to get a YouTube channel, make my own panel shows. Hopefully, you would like to come on there too.
Oh, of course.
And that's how I'm feeling about it. And Dan, it's such a coincidence because me and Dan doing a lot of shows in the last couple of weeks. So for us to be on here put together, it's a really cool coincidence.
Very nice.
No, 100%. But you know what, Charlie? What I would say to you as well is get more rootless, lad. Don't sit there with your hand up. If you want to say something, you know, get your point out there, my man. I absolutely loved it, though. Great show, people. Please, you said you already got the YouTube channel up and running, or you're setting it up?
Well, it's up, but I just need to make some videos first, so it's there.
Can you grab the link for us and throw it there in
can
the
you
private
send us
chat?
the
We'll
link
plug it
in the private chat, and we'll put it in there. We'll put it in the chat.
Of course I will, yeah.
Put it in there. And then also we have a few people that have already said they're already subbing to the sub to the Hotspur Hood. That's you, Danny boy. I mean, what's going on over there, lad?
I'm very much, the shows just come out of nowhere usually. I might pre-prepare one the day before, but I'm very much one who'll sit there and all of a sudden have a thought about something and think stuff it. I'll just go and do a show on it. So I'm quite random on what I do on there. But yeah, you'll find all my work on Hotspur Hood and then just bounce around off other shows. And yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Thanks for having us on. It's been a pleasure, mate.
No, I really enjoyed it. We seem to have good conversations, Dan. You know, this is good. But guys, please do get over, show some support to Dan. People are saying that they've subscribed there, so fair play to you guys. Keep getting over there and smashing that subscribe. We're going to put Charlie's in here as well. Guys, let's get him up and running. Let's get over there, get a few subscribers over there as well, and encourage him to get his video out for us. But genuinely, guys, I want to say thank you very much for your time. I really did enjoy this show. I didn't know how it was going to go, but look, it went absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much for your time. Also, everyone, big up Jack this side. I'm making the dog's dinner. This Jack here beside me as well. You know, I was caught off guard today, and I had to go over and help the owl lad and stuff like that. So Jack ended up putting it all together, and he made it happen. So big him up as well. And for me, slate me in the comments. I do enjoy when people slate me rather than love me. So that'll be absolutely brilliant. But that's it from me. We'll be back with more content this week, guys. And those who do want to see me at the North London Derby, just reach out. We'll sort something out.
All right. We'll leave you there, everybody. Come on, you Spurs, in the big Ange we trust over here.
Dave, one more question. Or Dave and Jack. Can I give you my phone number? Because I'm going to go to the North London Derby too. Are you going, Dan?
No, I won't be going there.
No? All right. So is it all right if I message you then?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. We'll chat in the back end. We'll chat in the back end. We'll exchange details. Good man.
Just stay in there. We'll end off the show. Stay in there. And
don't go anywhere. Don't go leaving. Don't go leaving. All right, everybody. We'll see you for the next show. I think tomorrow's some members content, if I remember correctly. I think we're going to put out some members only content. So for those of you that want to catch that, feel free to grab a membership, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Come on, you Spurs. Big Ange, we trust. We never stop. See you, everyone.